right, so tell me, Rusty, let's talk about some of the professional development you've been into this year.
So, been involved in a lot of different professional development, either through like the district with new beginning teacher workshops and the new teacher inductions at the beginning of the year, working on things like classroom management, Saturday training with Kagan, a Kagan training, professional development, and also how to build a lesson, write a lesson, and then breaking up the different components of a lesson. Also, professional development, learning about learning targets. And then also within the school, I've been in professional development, helping kids with trauma and helping them relieve stress in the classroom, with yoga in the classroom, Boys Town, learning different social skills.
So tell me, what do you think out of all those things have been the most powerful for you? Because professional development's that. Do you feel like you've been developed in your profession?
At the school level, I find that the PDs we've had, like on Thursdays, working with kids, helping them de-stress or, help work through their stress, either from the outside things like bad home life or whatever, or just inside the classroom and helping them deal with going from subject to subject. That's helped me it's helped me because it has made me learn to see when a kid gets frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I should separate him for a second, give him a timeout for a little bit so he can, start learning again. So it's helped me realize that, when kids are at that high stress, that they're not learning. So removing them from that situation so that they can calm down and come back to learn. It's also helped me see, I have liked learning like the yoga for classroom,
Mm-hmm.
because it has helped me to be able to see when the class is either tired, they're not really functioning, they're kind of just laying their heads down and bored. It gives me kind of an alternative to get them out of their seats, get them
Mm-hmm.
going in a productive way, to
Mm-hmm.
get their blood flowing and their minds kind of thinking again. And then one of my favorite PDs was the Kagan structure. I still have a lot of training, I think, to go with Kagan,
Mm-hmm.
but I really like that model and that structure for that classroom.
Mm-hmm. The cooperative learning.
The cooperative learning, and I really want to implement that completely within my classroom. So, and I just feel like setting the kids up in table groups in a certain manner that Kagan teaches you, and then having that partner, it allows for me to free up time, because I'm not telling, oh, this is your partner,
Mm-hmm.
like it's a quick way that I can get the class going and
Mm-hmm.
working together.
Absolutely. So do you feel that, I guess what I wanted to think about is, do you see how teaching is lifelong learning? Because there's always new things and new strategies. So professional development is ongoing constantly. That's why you see so much of it. That's why you've done so much, because that's how we keep on the current trends. Yes, you can go to college and earn your teaching degree, but how do you keep your practice current? So that's why those PDs are so important. And I just want you to maybe reflect on ways that you can remember the information that you get at PDs, a way to organize that information, keep things that you find important to you, because you will get so much PD throughout these years that maybe it's not all going to pertain to what you need, but when you find something good, how are you going to use it and implement it and reflect upon it?
Yep.
So maybe think about those systems for all those PDs that you will be going to. Let's talk a little bit about your the data, and how when you guys assess as a team, and how do you use that data? What are you doing with it?
So we have beginning of the year data, which we use to kind of group our students at the beginning of the year based on intensive, strategic, or on grade level.
Benchmark.
Like on benchmark.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we base everything on off the beginning of the year. And then we use kind of those quarterly benchmark assessments to then, and classroom observations, like how we are observing them in class,
Mm-hmm.
as well as like weekly assessments,
Mm-hmm.
to determine if they're going to move out or into another group.
Okay, so basically what I'm hearing you say is you gather this data as a grade level, you look at that data as a grade level, and you determine what kind of groups you can make based on a grade level. So are these groups fluid? The kids can change as they grow, hopefully grow and not regress. But do they stay in one group for the whole year, or are they able to move based on what you see in your data?
So they can move. So they can move either up or down, like you said, and that's based off of new testing. So we progress monitor weekly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's based off of progress monitoring, and then those those weekly summative assessments, and then also just basic observation. And they'll move in or out. So if they're really low benchmark, they're probably going to stay in that group all year. But and we have goals. So like for reading, there is a goal, and that's how we use those benchmarks
to decide where they're going to go from there. So do you do this individually, or how do you do this process?
So we do it as a team.
Okay.
So we'll take like our class and be like, this is what we think our class should be, and then kind of meet as a team to see, well, how many are in each, and kind of divvy it up that way.
Okay, so you look at your own data individually, you make some judgment calls based on your own data, so when you meet with your team, you kind of have the information, you know where you kind of want your kids to go, so you can start making your groups as a team.
Right.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit more about so tell me about what you said lots of classroom observations, and so, or just thinking back about what your kids are learning. So tell me about your reflective process. Like, what do you do?
Well, so I progress monitor weekly. So just one-on-one, do testing scores on them weekly to see where they're falling from week to week. I also look at how they did on that summative assessment, but I don't weigh so much on that. But then it's mostly I watch them. Like, for example, I have a kid in my class who was falling down, like he was going down. And I was noticing it was, and I think it was kind of more home life issues, but he wasn't doing his homework, he wasn't participating in class, he wasn't doing his work, and his grades were starting to suffer. And so I pulled him to a lower level, because I teach like a lower level intervention, and I pulled him into my class, not because I was wanting him to be lower, but because I knew his background story, and I knew that if he's in my class, I can keep that eye on him and keep pushing him and talking him through some issues that he was going through.
So it's not like you're really using that relationship with him. Like, if you're capitalizing on your positive relationship to keep him motivated instead of just do it or go here to go there. You were trying to use your relationship with your student to keep him motivated, to keep him focused, because you knew some of his background of what was going on with him. That's awesome. So you are in, the clientele of our district is highly Hispanic. And so tell me a little bit more how you try to reach the students on with some of their cultural background. Have you ever tried to work that in?
So, not really, really.
And it's difficult. So what would you, so then maybe that could be like a piece of your reflection.
Okay.
Is thinking about how, whatever I'm teaching, whenever I'm trying to reach my kids, how can I include their culture, and why, but why do you think that's something you should do? Do you think there's any reason to do that?
Well, especially with this culture, they care about where they come from. They are very heavily family oriented. So I do think it's important because they care about it.
Absolutely.
And they talk about it all the time. And I think the big reason it is important is because if I can bring that into instruction, they would probably pay more attention to it.
Absolutely. That is the big bang. Whenever you can bring in somebody's culture, which is basically their background knowledge, is basically what they know and what they can relate to. So the more you can relate it to something they know and are comfortable with, the more they are going to retain. And there's something about being a culturally responsive teacher. So basically you're thinking about those things. You're thinking about something that might make them uncomfortable based on their culture. You're thinking about something that make them more comfortable based on their culture. You want to incorporate it. You might, some books that I could recommend, like Skippy John Jones books. They do a lot of mixing of Spanish and English when you're reading them. So there's a couple books that just read alouds that within the read aloud, there's some Spanish phrases, and students just would just get the biggest kick out of watching you, and they want to help you, and they want to see you, and they want to. You might even start asking them different Spanish words. Guys, how do you say desk in Spanish? And really trying to incorporate their language into your day too. That you're going to try that.
Well, and I do that because I would say probably 80% of my students are bilingual, and so they will teach me. I'll ask them certain words, and they'll tell me, but I don't use them. So I need to start, I think, once they teach me, start actually showing them, like, I'm trying, I'm using them.
I think that would go a long way. What that just kind of shows is you're not putting one language or one culture over another. You're just making them equal. Like, I want to learn from you, like I expect you to learn from me. And I think, especially with the younger kids, that really says a lot to them about their ability to trust you and believe in you, too, that you're not this lady that doesn't know anything about them. Like, they live one life here and another life at home, that we want to try to intermix them so they know that this is like a home. This is comfortable. Yeah. So I think you're right. Just, maybe throwing a word out there here and there when you can. They're like, oh, she knows it. They're going to really relate to that and think, that's really cool that she learned that. So I think the more you can show them that you care about their culture, that you think it's important, that it's not a separate thing from what you do here, that you'll really build that buy-in, that relationship building with your students will come really quickly when they see that in you. And I do see you do that. I think you're doing a good job with that as well.
All right.
All right. Good job, Miss
Thank
Lolly.
you.